Beautiful people of Atlanta's West Side, welcome to the 8th virtual Transform Westside Summit. You know, Ebony, I feel like I haven't been here since last year. It's crazy.
Something about it. It's crazy, isn't it?
Happy New Year, Westside. What's happening? We appreciate y'all tuning in.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us. My name is Benjamin Earley, my lovely co-host.
Thank you, Mr. Earley. My name is Ebony Ford. Thank y'all so much for being here. Happy New Year. It has been a while. We're so happy to be back. We are still virtual.
Yeah.
Be the news that you can use about the west side of Atlanta. So thank y'all so much for being here today. We got a piece for you today.
Absolutely.
Great.
We've got some wonderful guests this morning. You know, we got to start off the new year the right way, so we got some familiar faces here that are going to be delivering some awesome information that's relevant to you and yours here on the west side. We're excited to welcome Ms. Venessa Harrison, AT&T President, AT&T Georgia President, as well as Dr. Diamond Ford. She is the principal of Hollis Innovation Academy, and our very own head honcho, John Ahmann, President and CEO of Westside Future Fund. And Ebony, I know you got more on who's going to be delivering devotion.
I absolutely do. This, as many of the summits are very, very special and personal to me, but this one right here is especially personal. Being an actual resident of the West Side, I have been a recipient of so many of the awesome programs that we have here. And we're going to be talking to, again, my son, Jeremiah, principal at Michael R. Hollis Innovation Academy, which is a part of, what cluster is that?
The Booker T. Washington Club.
So we're going to be talking to my son's principal today. And she is going to be talking about the initiatives at AT&T, how that actually personally impacts my life, my son's life, and the life of the children in my community. So this is very personal to me. And at this point, I want to put my little plug out here because I was thinking about this last night. So I am a very active parent, kind of a helicopter parent, actually. So I am on the Hollis secretary, actually. So I serve under Ford.
Okay.
Hollis actually has just gotten STEM certified, which is huge, okay? Woo, 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 woo.
Okay, Hollis.
And yes, I was actually on the parent panel for that, so we are very, very excited about that. Yes. Dr. Ford also started an initiative which is really into customer service, so she really wants her parents, her children, of course, to be educated and fulfilled, have wraparound services and be supported, but she also wants us to be satisfied with the services we're getting from Michael R. Hollis Academy. I'm actually on that committee as well. So at this point, I just think the only thing left is for Dr. Ford to have me over to her house for dinner. So that's what I was getting to. So that's the only thing that's left, Dr. Ford. So then you just get to that. You know what I'm saying? So, yes.
Make sure you bring your card so she'll let you in that door, okay?
Absolutely, and I am boosted as well. So again, this is very personal to me. This is a really big summit for me, so I'm very happy to be here.
All
and
right.
as Benjamin mentioned, we actually do have Miss Lakeisha Walker, who's the vice president of the Youth Foundation, doing our devotion.
All right, and I know we're giving away some gift cards later today
are.
in the show. Why don't you tell the folks about that?
Foundation and do a and also the broader city of Atlanta and metro. Today, they will also each be giving away a gift card to one of our lucky viewers. Please, in order to get your name into that drawing, go to our website, westsidefuturefund.org. Click on our homepage, Event Spotlight, and then RSVP to get yourself entered into the drawing for a gift card this morning.
All right, and that being said, we're going to get into our devotion. Again, Ms. Lakeisha Walker, Vice President of Youth Initiatives at Atlanta Police Foundation, will be offering today's devotion. And I'm excited. Anytime we can have a native of the West Side that is contributing to the summit, I'm always excited. You know where my heart is. Y'all know where my heart is. And Lakeisha is a product of the West Side. She grew up off of Simpson Road, which is now just a boom. Shout out Simpson. I see y'all. Okay. She also attended the Booker T. Washington High School. So she's got a lot of roots here on the West Side. And, you know, of course, working in the field that she's working in, she's helping to contribute to the betterment of our community, our youth, and their future. And we're excited to hear from her today. Which brings us to our devotion statement. It's become our tradition to begin our meetings with a positive, inspirational message from a member of our community. Recognizing that many in our community are driven by their spiritual faith to participate in the Westside revitalization effort, the time at the beginning of our meetings is an opportunity to share various inspirational reflections. While the speakers may articulate their personal faith, it's meant to be inclusive, inspiring, and meaningful with the story of Nehemiah as our guide. Enjoy.
Good morning. I am Lakeisha Walker, Vice President of Youth Initiatives with the Atlanta Police Foundation, Atlanta native and born and raised here on the West Side. This morning, I have the opportunity to give the very first devotion of 2022, which happens to fall during Dr. King's birthday. My perspective of the book of Nehemiah will focus on 3 words: rebuild, revive, and restore. To rebuild is to build something again after it has been damaged. To revive, return to life, recover life or strength. To restore is to reestablish or bring back into existence. The book of Nehemiah reminds us what can be accomplished when you align yourself with God's plan. Nehemiah was appointed governor of Judah with the authority and resources to build the city and the city's walls. He assembled a labor force, divided the wall into sections, and supervised the building process. Through Nehemiah's leadership, he assembled the people and ensured they were all on one accord. The book talked about how different groups, districts, men, women, residents, leaders, and the clergy were all assigned a section to repair the gates that made up the wall. Because of the faith that Nehemiah exhibited and his leadership, people supported his efforts. Although he had support, there were many people that opposed the rebuilding and attempted to make things difficult for Nehemiah while plotting his downfall. But his faith in God's promise kept him going. This was a difficult time for Nehemiah and his laborers. It was so much rubble and people against him that the strength of his laborers started to decline. However, Nehemiah continued to stand firm in the face of opposition. He persevered through his faith and his leadership. When I compare these times with the state of our great city, the thoughts of where we are can be a bit discouraging. Our city has gone through many obstacles the last couple of years, from COVID-19 pandemic, social injustice, racial and political divide, and a crime surge in our city. It is vital that we are aligned with God's plan on one accord with our new mayor to rebuild, revive, and restore our city and its citizens. Collectively, we can shadow Nehemiah's laborers by doing what each of us do best to rebuild our city, taking on our assignments to repair the communities in which we serve, having the faith of a mustard seed when faced with opposition. As an example, the mission of the Atlanta Police Foundation is to make Atlanta the safest, largest city. We do that through creating programs and initiatives, such as the At Promise Youth Centers. So just like many of you other organizations, such as the Westside Future Fund, Raising Expectations, Westside on the Rise, working collectively to do what we do best to rebuild our city. We have to restore our citizens spiritually. We have endured so much, such as illness, unemployment, food insecurities, death, gentrification, homelessness, inflation, and record high crime rates. This impacts the motivation and productivity of our people because of broken spirits. This sounds like a lot. Our city is surrounded in rubble. However, the odds were against Nehemiah, similarly as the odds seems against our city. We must rebuild what was torn down, restore what was destroyed, and revive the heartbeat of our great city of Atlanta. We would do this by supporting our leader, Mayor Dickens, and have faith that we will thrive if on one accord and aligned with God's plan. Thank you so much to the Westside Future Fund for giving me the opportunity to do the first devotion of 2022. I look forward to continuing to partner with each of you, and hopefully something that I said today resonated to someone that's listening. Thank you.
Wow, Lakeisha, thank you so much I got a hand here. Well, Lakeisha, thank you so much for that wonderful devotion. It was heartfelt. We know you meant every single word. And again, things just ring true in a different way when you are actually from the West Side and you're speaking to things that matter on the West Side. So thank you again, Lakeisha Walker. And I know now we got our mission, vision, and values slides that we want to get to. Ebony, why don't you take that away?
Absolutely. Westside Future Fund is committed to building a community that Dr. King would be proud to call home. And so we are out there doing that good work every single day to make that vision come true. And we're doing that with the help of our now 2022 Board of Directors. And we also want to make sure that everyone knows that this Board of Directors is all volunteer. So they do not get paid for any of the work that they do, any of the very, very good work that they do for Westside Future Fund. So we are very, very grateful for them. Also, we are very grateful for our dedicated team at Westside Future Fund. And again, we're always working to get the mission out, get the word out about the West Side. So thank you. Thank you to our team and thank you to our board.
That being said, it's time for us to get connected. You know, this time at the summits, we would usually have people pass the mic around the room when we were gathering in person, and everyone would introduce themselves and, you know, state their affiliations to the West Side and whatnot. Well, the digital version of that is in the comment section below this stream. We want you to go ahead and give us a nice Happy New Year Friday morning greeting. We know it's cold outside, but hopefully you somewhere warm and tucked away with some heat blasting right on your feet if you can help it. You know what I mean? So go ahead and give us a nice greeting this morning. Let us know how you celebrated the new year, how you brought it in with your family and friends, what you guys plan to do to pop off this new year in the right way. Go ahead and drop that in the comment section below. We're happy to hear from you, and we love to engage with you. Again, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow our channels, and help us share this very vital information that is very, very important to, again, the betterment of the entire West Side community. Information is only useful if people know that it exists. So please help us spread the word so that everybody who stands to benefit from the information being shared here on the West Side, that is the residents of the West Side, can actually take advantage of this vital information. Absolutely. We appreciate you. And that being said, I think we're going to go ahead and get into our featured panel discussion. Yes. Lovely co-host, we appreciate you joining us. I'm going to slide down this way, and we're going to start bringing up our special guests. First up, we have the president of AT&T Georgia, a familiar and welcome face, Miss Venessa Harrison. Thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you come on up? And immediately following, we've got the principal of Michael R. Hollis Innovation Academy, the Dr. Diamond Ford, representing the Booker T. Washington Cluster. Shout out Booker T. Washington Cluster. And of course, we got our head honcho, John Ahmann, president and CEO of Westside Future Fund. Thank you all for being a part of this wonderful conversation. We appreciate you joining this morning. And I want to go ahead and just start this off nice and light. So I want to go through each of you. And we'll start with you, Ms. Harrison. And just talk about the why for leading your organizations. What is it about the job, the calling, that makes you feel so compelled to, you know, sustain the role of leadership?
Well, first of all, I'm very grateful to be here. Thank you, and thank you, John, for inviting me. I'm very proud of the work that the Westside Future Fund is championing in the communities of the West Side, and the work that Dr. Ford is doing with Hollis Innovation Academy. I feel so compelled to be a part of these efforts because I feel like these are my roots. I grew up in low-income housing in Raleigh, North Carolina, and when I first got to Atlanta, I had been on a journey to get to Atlanta for many, many years, but I didn't get here until 3 years ago. And when I first got here, I met John Ahmann through Sylvia Russell, and I was just so impressed with the efforts to transform these communities in a holistic way, that to uplift people and to increase economic mobility and to find jobs and give job skills and education, until I felt compelled, and I'm very fortunate to work for a company that have those same priorities and commitment in terms of the community, being a good corporate sponsor, a good corporate citizen, and having the priorities of working to uplift communities and increase economic mobility. So those are some of the reasons why I feel compelled to do what I do, and I enjoy it each and every day.
And it shows up in the way that you do your job. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Dr. Ford.
Yes, so I think that being an educator is really important to the fabric of our community and our world. And I can think of my reason why it is important to make Hollis a phenomenal, innovative school is my own experience of having to drive and be on a bus an hour away to go to a school that was quote unquote better, to chase a better, education. And I think that my responsibility is to ensure that children don't have to get on a bus to go anywhere further away from their community, their roots, what they know, people they're comfortable with, people they have an affinity and a connection with to get to a better education. So my commitment and my why is that they can walk down the street to their school. It is an excellent school, and we chase after excellence, and it's in the faces of the kids. I think it's important to look at each and every face and look in each and every eye and understand that there is a path for them, and it's my responsibility to get them on the right path and to continue to push them forward to excellence. So that's my why.
And you all do that. And anybody that's familiar with the Washington cluster, the Booker T. Washington cluster, you know that these people operate as a family. The West Side is known for a lot of things, but when it comes to the Washington cluster specifically, they operate as a family, and you'll see all the principals hanging out. You'll see the teachers and staff from all of the different schools getting together. You'll see the parents from each of the schools hanging out and getting together and working on projects to better the school and better the education system for everybody involved. And that's something that we really think is special here on the West Side, and we appreciate. Mr. Ahmann, to you, your why for leading the West Side Future Fund, Mr. Ahmann.
When you ask it like that, I start to get nervous. But first, thanks for being here. Thanks for, Dr. Ford and Venessa for being here today. So my why, I'm really inspired by the history of Atlanta as a native Atlantan. So it's remarkable to me that the same city that was burned down as the capital of the Confederacy is the same city that many refer to as the leader of the Civil Rights Movement. And a lot of that leadership for justice came right out of the West Side. So that, and then the other part about, the West Side being such an underserved community and a very well-served city. And so part of where I just, given some of the previous roles I played in our city, is how we can connect resources to need in ways that, are holistic and meet the needs. So my why is Atlanta, thanks to leaders like Venessa, right, has so much to give to be able to, to lift up this community. So my why is to be a part of that, journey of Atlanta being a better and better city.
Awesome. And John, I want to stick with you for this next question, then we'll pop it back over to you, Ms. Harrison. But, a few years ago, AT&T and Westside Future Fund embarked on a very important partnership. And John, I want you to just sort of speak to the highlights of that partnership and then just talk about, what makes you most proud about it.
Well, one, and what I'm very grateful for, because Venessa, representing AT&T, came in early to our efforts. And that's really important, because I was just thinking about a metaphor. If you walk past a restaurant you're thinking about going into and it's totally empty, you're like, well, mate, I don't know, no one else is in there, I don't know if I want to try it. But with Venessa coming in and AT&T, because a lot of the other corporations that come and invest, having AT&T be in is like, oh, I see someone I recognize in that restaurant. Let me go, I feel a little bit safer. So that one want to thank for that, because some of the early work is a little bit more risk behind that, so to speak. And so one, I really appreciate that, because that's a big deal. So thank you. And then the actual investments, helped, which we're really proud of, under Diamond's leadership and vision, helping with the STEM education, which is now certified, which is very exciting. And they've also helped launch, our entrepreneurship program and our PRI program to help Westside entrepreneurs. So the investments at AT&T have had a tangible impact, plus the visibility that a corporation, and we were actually chatting before the show, another great thing Venessa did, as we brought on our multifamilies in English Avenue, 395 James P. Brawley, they accelerated their fiber. So we have, fiber at 395, and the kids have free Wi-Fi, so they can be out on the patio, I guess, zooming into the instruction at Hollis. So we also appreciate that as well.
All right, and Ms. Harrison, why don't you talk about, piggyback on what John was just talking about, what makes you most proud about your partnership with Westside Future Fund?
Well, we launched this partnership in January of 2019. I arrived in Atlanta to take over the AT&T Georgia in December of 2018. So within 30 days, I had met John Ahmann and was introduced to the Westside Future Fund, and was very impressed. I was impressed because the Westside Future Fund is dedicated to transforming the Westside communities in a holistic way. They're interested in having public safety, making sure that the communities are safe. They're interested in affordable housing. As I said earlier, they're interested in making sure that our kids are educated through partnerships with Dr. Ford and other schools like Hollis Academy, Innovation Academy. And so those are the same priorities that my company AT&T has, and so it was just a good fit. And when we look at that, we feel like that is a good start, but it's still a lot of work to be done. AT&T is very proud of the amount of broadband that we have expanded across the state of Georgia. We believe with all the providers we have, at least 90% of the residents here have, and businesses have access to broadband. Now, access doesn't mean adoptability. You know, you can have access, but people have not adopted it. And so that's where we have work to do. And we still have work to do in making sure that we close the digital divide. And in closing the digital divide is a little bit challenging if you don't have affordable housing where people can be stable in their homes and they're not moving month to month. And so those are the priorities that align with AT&T's mission and priorities. And that's why the partnership works so well. And I believe over the 3 years that we have been working together, we've done a lot of amazing things. But, and I believe that the relationship and the partnership has gotten better and even stronger as time goes on.
And I couldn't agree more. You know, a lot of times we talk about this sort of global topic of, you know, doing better for the West Side, investing in the West Side. But what does that actually mean on a practical, everyday, person-to-person level? You know, and when it comes to education, what does that mean as far as, you know, creating equity for historic West Side students? Well, what that looks like in practice is exactly what AT&T Georgia is doing. You know, closing the digital divide, for those who aren't aware, you know, not like Ms. Harrison just alluded to, not everybody can afford the internet, which is hard to imagine for a lot of people. But not everybody can afford the internet. And when you think about how vital it is, not just in a social sense, not just in a professional sense, but in a day-to-day sense of this is the new realm for students, this is the new world that students are going to have to grow up and inhabit and hopefully thrive in. Well, you know, the only way to make sure that that is possible is to ensure that they have access right now as they're going through their educational process. And so, Dr. Ford, I want you to just highlight, you know, what's so important, again, about the AT&T Access Program specifically for your school in the Washington cluster.
Let me just add one thing. You talked about affordability.
Yes, ma'am.
That is very important because everybody can't afford it. We don't know the income of everybody, but one of the things that AT&T is doing is that we have an access program where we can provide broadband for low-income people at $10 a month or some low price to help accommodate people that can't afford it. So that was one point that I wanted to put out there because we are very interested in spreading the word about that program so that people can look into it and get access to broadband because they need it.
Absolutely. And again, these types of programs exist so that people who need them can take advantage. So
Yes.
if you know anyone who, you know, needs access to the internet, who is on a tight budget, look into the AT&T Access Program. We highly recommend it. Dr. Ford.
Yeah, so, you know, I think what we have all seen and all become aware of is that the pandemic lifted and brought light to a very real topic, which is a digital divide, but it's also a racial and socioeconomic issue that, you know, we have a lot of work to do. And when children are at home and not in school, they don't have the access. If they do not have internet access and they cannot get on to Zoom, to search. And so, you know, a lot of our kids, we don't want them to have the continued gaps that we know already consistently exist right now between, you know, African American students and white students, or based on your socioeconomic range and where you are and where you fall in terms of income. And so I think that what happens is when you have companies like AT&T committed to making sure that there is an opportunity for access, it then helps me and feeds our community and our students to ensure that we can continue to push the needle and close the gap. Our children are very smart, they are resourceful, they are highly intelligent, but they need the opportunity. And so when you don't have the opportunity at home in a virtual setting, you provide yet another stumbling stone. And like I said, I don't want our children having to be bused somewhere or having to wait to be able to get an excellent education. They need it now. It's immediate. There is an immediate concern around our children. And it's time to act. And it's time to be very intentional about what are we going to do about students who still are struggling to get access, right? So we have to really think thoroughly and very diligently about where we are now. Not only that, in the COVID pandemic and now that we've lifted this idea of technology, it's coming into the school even more. We have a very different style of teaching now. We have blended classrooms. Personalized learning has taken a center stage because personalized learning has to be done. It is difficult to do it just by a teacher to teacher. You have to have the aid of technology and the aid of different programs and access to be able to extend their learning beyond the classroom. It's no longer just the teacher standing in front of them and saying, here's your book assignment, now do this. It's now, get on this site. When you get home, extend your learning. And then really encouraging students to take the time that they're normally doing other things to look into how do you build and build beyond what we talked about in class. So there is a lot of work to be done around education, and this is where we are now having to focus that it's a new landscape, and we have to think differently, and how are we going to get all of our students there?
Absolutely. And you both just, highlighted a point that I'd like to emphasize, especially with John, who I'm sure is going to do the same. But affordability, affordable housing, affordable internet, these are various aspects of that word again, creating equity. So, when it comes to why is there such a divide in the first place? The history of discrimination against African Americans, the history of redlining and gerrymandering, and all of these things that have put the historic West Side into this sort of isolated bubble of neglect for so long that our families today are still having to fight their way out of. Thankfully, we have help now, but this is still a very real, this is still a reality for a lot of people within the historic West Side. And so when you talk about, things like affordable access to the internet or affordable food or affordable housing, which I'm gonna have John speak to, it's not just, these individual things aren't just isolated topics. They all work together because, as Ms. Harrison was speaking to, if your housing isn't affordable, you're bouncing around from place to place, you can't even take advantage of the affordable internet. There's a lot of uncertainty when you don't have stable housing. So John, I want you to speak to specifically the $100,000 investment that AT&T Georgia made in Westside Future Fund and how that is gonna help to forward the work of the Westside Future Fund's mission.
Well, one of the, it's a part of is our Home on the West Side program. And one of my big learnings, leading the Westside Future Fund is, on affordable housing, it's not just the important that it's affordable, but where is the affordable housing and what quality is it? And one of my big learnings when I started the Westside Future Fund, nearly all of the subsidized quality housing in Atlanta comes via the Atlanta Housing Authority, which is via the federal government. It's oversubscribed. There's a huge wait list. So they're nowhere near enough. And when we started the work on the West Side, we realized, looking at some of the lessons of our city, the great news is more companies moving to the downtown, to the West Side, more jobs means more people moving in, means the neighborhoods are going to become more well-served, but it's going to push up land prices and push up housing costs. So what we really had to do with Home on the West Side to move fast was go out there and acquire additional land that we could then convert and keep people who want to be in the neighborhood in the neighborhood. And especially, we have a special focus on families that are in the Hollis cluster. So the affordable housing, and thanks to AT&T and other investors, we're able to go out there and buy what were privately owned or vacant multifamilies or single-family lots and convert that to high-quality, subsidized housing. And another really important part about the Home on the West Side program is people from the community kind of get first dibs on what's available. So that's, and what was so important about that is thanks to that support, we can move quickly, and because in a few years you already see it happening, right? Land prices escalating. So that was so important about that $100,000 investment, is helping us put the fuel in Home on the West Side.
And as a native of the West Side myself, it is, I couldn't be more proud and honored to be even close in proximity to what West Side Future Fund is doing, because I know a lot of people, who I grew up with, who stand to benefit from the Home on the West Side program, but furthermore, a lot of people are seeing the downside to not having enough of these types of programs out there. And what that looks like is tried and true Old Testament type stuff, where people are getting pushed out of the neighborhoods. So, my grandparents, my mother, my aunts, they all graduated from Washington High School. They grew up in the historic West Side, Vine City. And, there used to be a community called, the Lightning community, which was right across the street from where the Georgia Dome was, And the way that it goes is you get new developments that come in, they push up the property value, which in turn pushes up the price for the properties. And people who have not had the income to keep up end up getting pushed out. They get priced out. And so we see that happening right now. Anybody that's from the West Side that knows, Dunnerly Hollowell to be Bankhead can ride down Bankhead and now see $500,000 townhomes and condos going up. And for people who are from these areas, for people who aren't from these areas, you see that as, okay, this is progress. This used to be a sort of rundown part of the stretch of the street, and now they're doing some good. And that is one side of the story. But the other side of the story is the people who are used to calling that place home. They see that as, okay, I'm not going to be able to do that for much longer, because this means I won't be able to afford to stay here. And what I love about the Home on the West Side program is that you're making that no longer the case. And even though you can only do so much as one organization, and we hope to inspire other organizations and people to step up to contribute, but you are doing a tremendous job at creating space for people who are used to calling these areas home. And it shows up in the faces of these residents. And I want to show the faces of some of these residents. We've got a video right now on a young lady named Trinity, who Dr. Ford is familiar with. She's a student. And Trinity grew up on the West Side, and she has her own story, and I want to play that video now for you.
Hi, I'm Trinity. I'm 10 years old, and when I grow up, I want to be a lawyer. This is where I live on the west side of Atlanta. Water soda lemonade. A lot of people who changed the world grew up in my neighborhood. This is Morehouse, Spelman, and Clark, where Alice Walker, Spike Lee, Samuel L. Jackson, Stacey Abrams, and Dr. King went to college. Down the street from my house is Dr. Martin Luther King House. This is the house where he raised his family, and when I grow up, I want to change the world, just like he did. I want people to feel loved and cared. I want them to be happy and smile every day they wake up.
Trinity is a fourth grade student here at Hollis Innovation Academy. She has a spunk, a little chutzpah, if you will. Entrepreneurship apparently runs in her veins. One of the things that I think is reflected in Trinity is a desire to do excellent things in the face of tremendous adversity. This is a historic part of the city. It is the birthplace of civil rights. And what I recognize about the west side of Atlanta that's different than others is that you can go down streets that have major names of people who have made impacts on the city of Atlanta and nationally.
But I still see that a lot of our children may engage people who already have a perceived idea about who they are based off of the color of their skin, where they're from, the clothes that they wear, and not really take the time to get to know who they are as a person.
We want to make the West Side a great place for training your family by delivering on those things that deliver quality of life and deliver economic opportunity. So that's high quality public education through the Booker T. Washington cluster. Health and wellness through great parks and access to high quality medical care. That is, cradle to career. So the things we try to deliver on for Trinity, health and wellness, public safety, and a quality education and career training so she can kind of have the life that she wants. She has ownership of her destiny. When she can say what she is choosing to do next and has ownership of her destiny, I think that's a community Dr. King would be proud to call home.
I'm really thankful to the Westside Future Fund because they're making my neighborhood a neighborhood that Dr. King will be proud to call home.
Isn't it beautiful? Isn't it lovely? Thank you, Trinity, for that beautiful testimonial. We appreciate you. Shout out to your whole family. We know you be out there on the corner selling lemonade, and I'm going to come see you as soon as it get back hot outside, all right? So y'all keep doing your thing. But, Ms. Harrison, seeing the impact that you all are having through Hollis, through Westside Future Fund, why did you come to the Westside in the first place? What was the why for coming to the Westside specifically?
Well, like I stated earlier, I grew up in low-income housing in Raleigh, North Carolina, in an underserved area. And so I felt like that part of this community it's my roots. And so I also felt like that, like I said earlier, that, the Westside Future Fund was interested in transforming the communities in a holistic way. And I was very interested in the efforts because those are the same priorities that my company share. But I also realized that gone before us are so many great leaders, such as Martin Luther King, that worked hard in and to enhance these communities, and not just the communities, the nation and the world, to make it a better place. And so I believe that we have an obligation to give back to the communities, to uplift our communities. As Mayor Dickens says, hope for one Atlanta and brighter futures for all. And so that's what inspires me to want to do this, and that's what helps me make my decisions in investment when we are utilizing AT&T's time, talent, and treasure.
And speaking of which, this entire summit is about the collaboration between these three, the AT&T Georgia, Westside Future Fund, and the entire Booker T. Washington cluster. And speaking of the word collaboration, Dr. Ford, in what ways does partnering with Westside Future Fund, partnering with AT&T, benefiting from these investments, what does that translate to for students of Hollis?
Yeah, it translates into stability for our students and our families. And like John is talking about, the stability of having stable housing, and like you've also talked about, that's hugely important for a school. If a child moves from one place to the other throughout the school year, that only creates additional challenges for the student to catch up or to even get acclimated, build bonds, and create relationships. So creating stability for a school is hugely important. At one time, Hollis had a transient population of almost 60%, which was hugely high. And that means we can have, at times, up to 6 to 7 students coming in and out on any given week. And so when you filter that down into a classroom setting, you're looking at students who see children who they may have built connections with leaving and then someone else coming. So stability is huge. The other thing that I think is hugely important is, like I said, not having to leave your community for an excellent education. So there are certain things that you look for in an excellent school when you go looking at a neighborhood you want to live in. How are the schools? And so it is hugely important that we have that support because we're able to offer programs and opportunities for our students in the school. We're able to give them access to experiences outside of the school around Atlanta, things that they may have never even imagined. For like Trinity, a pathway that she may not have seen. She has a desire, she has a vision for what she wants to do. It's my job now to help her get there. The other thing that I think is great is, you know, some of those amenities we talk about in great schools, and look at what they have. We have a loo, and I know it seems like, oh, that is one of the huge donations that AT&T made to us that has a daily impact even right now. It is a technology, interactive, high impact interface that kids can have through PE, going into the gym, and just really engage each other in technology daily, so that they're not, they're having an experience of growing how to interface with different technologies. So there are several reasons and several impacts that AT&T and Home on the West Side have on a school setting: access, stability, and giving students pathways.
And John, I want you to follow up with this question. So piggybacking more on the access and stability and all of these things, we're talking about how Home on the West Side is impacting not just, you know, the students, but also their families, also, you know, their loved ones. And if you could just highlight why the Home on the West Side program is significant for anybody who has roots in the West Side, and then also speak to the importance of partnering with the Booker T. Washington Cluster to help further that program.
Yeah, well, in terms of the roots, the Home on the West Side, we were very intentional in designing community retention criteria. So when, you know, we were out there, I remember we had raised funds, we were out there buying, you know, a lot of vacant, blighted property. The question from the community was, well, who's going to go in there? And how does a community, which has been here a long time, kind of go in first, so to speak? And so the community retention guidelines were our answer to that, which we prioritize our housing for those that are living on the West Side, those that have lived on the West Side, those that are working in the neighborhoods. So any teachers, for example, that are working at Hollis, those that have graduated from the Booker T. Washington Cluster, or those that have graduated from one of the Atlanta University Center institutions, Morehouse, Spelman, Clark Atlanta, Morehouse Medical. And so that's our way of saying that the housing we're bringing online, that the folks that go to the front of the line, you know, are folks that have that, you know, either current connection or historic connection. And one thing we're, you know, excited about, one of the single families in English Avenue that we're closed on as a person that graduated from Morehouse College. He actually works with one of our West Side entrepreneurs, Keacher Bates, and that's how he learned about the Home on the West Side program. And so now he's receiving down payment assistance, you know, to go into this home. So that's one part to ensure that, you know, folks that have the community in their heart, you know, so to speak, are first up on the housing. Now the other thing that's really critical that I know is that, and Dr. Ford spoke to, is that in high poverty neighborhoods, you typically have the families moving around to find the lowest rent. And that creates churn at the school. The technical term, they call it student mobility. And so kids will start at an elementary school but not finish there. And I think the data says that's almost like a grade when a family shifts to school. And so one of the biggest ways you can impact student achievement is ensuring, especially in a quality cluster like Booker T. Washington, that the child goes all the way through, like Trinity. Because we would want Trinity, right, to graduate from Booker T, but then move on to the Booker T. Washington High School. And so delivering that housing, especially for families, so they can move all the way through, right, is another really critical part of Home on the West Side.
And sticking with you, John, speak to, again, the impact of having AT&T invest directly in West Side Future Fund's work. How important that is towards continuing, you know, everything that you just said.
Well, without the, you know, corporate support of you know, AT&T and companies like AT&T, there would be no funds in the West Side Future Fund, because what, you know, some of the name is, you know, the West Side Future Fund. We're not an endowed foundation, and so, you know, the overwhelming support that we enjoy philanthropically and charitably is, you know, thanks to AT&T and other corporations that have really stepped up and say, we want to be a part. This is what I love about Atlanta. You know, a lot of our corporations are such leaders in moving the needle in a positive way that, you know, without AT&T's investment, we wouldn't be able to do the things that we're doing. And the other thing, I mentioned earlier too, is you know, it's a big deal. We're very grateful that the president of AT&T Georgia is here this morning. And that gives a lot of validity to our efforts, so thank you, because that says a lot. And it gives confidence to other folks that, hey, if AT&T and their leader is there, that's a big deal for us.
Absolutely. And speaking of AT&T, we've got a video package that I want to get to in a second on AT&T's effort to close the homework gap. And we'll hear more about the homework gap in a second. But I do want to just throw out there, if you have any questions for our panelists, please go ahead and drop them in the comment section below. They'll shoot them over to me, and I'll be happy to ask them for you. Again, you know, if you have a question, just type in the comment section as concisely as possible, y'all. We don't need paragraphs, all right? I love you. Just type it in the comment section, and they'll shoot it over to us, and we'll get it to our panel. That being said, let's get into the AT&T video. AT&T. And Dr. Ford, I want you to just speak a little bit more on the homework gap, just sort of elaborate on what it is, what the issues around it are, so that folks who aren't aware can.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that the video highlights is just, you know, making sure that students have access to the internet and are able to engage in that learning. The other thing is the resources and support that may be helping students because they are at home and they are further away from a teacher than they've ever been. So resources that can support them are, you know, necessary to ensure that we don't have the gap. And I saw that the statistics on the screen is that we have to be so mindful that there was a gap already, and now the gap is larger. So anything that you can do to kind of close that gap is important. So access and additional help and resources. So the students at home that are online and having to get their learning in a whole new way have the support they need to kind of continue to move forward. Yeah.
And Dr. Ford, I want to stick with you for this next question, and we'll come to each of the panelists for this. But AT&T is doing a lot to help, you know, mitigate these you know, bits of adversity that our students and our families are going through. Mm-hmm. And so, Dr. Ford, I want you to just sort of speak to how people can help to further close the gap, what people can do to get involved to help not just Hollis, but the entire Booker T. Washington cluster and its mission.
So, you know, our goal as a complete cluster, and I know I can speak on behalf of the Booker T. Washington cluster, is that we are really chasing after being a STEM certified cluster. All of us are either STEM certified or in the pipeline for it. So anything that helps and push that is huge. So our students like to engage in hands-on, and since they've been at home and online, we need now the opportunity for them to have resources to do those different things. So there are probably lists that every school has in terms of how individual projects can be completed. There are technical things because we are a technology-focused cluster as well as an ag STEM focused, and seeing how those two things interact. So there are things like Raspberry Pis, different coding things that they do. I don't even know all the lingo. They're probably going to be like, you know, just stop talking because you don't even know the definition of it. But I do know there are different resources that are helpful for us to move STEM forward. The other thing that I would say is that we enjoy our teachers and love our teachers. And this is also an environment where teachers are really struggling. They are trying to balance their own home life as well as some of the challenges that come with COVID, as well as provide an excellent education to our babies. And so there's a lot on teachers. So any kind of demonstration of support for teachers and educators is hugely important at this time. And I think that showing up and being, instead of just time, having time and treasure is great, but being there for kids. So I know that there are opportunities that different schools have for reading, whether it's online reading to a kid to help them have a reader, a one-on-one reader. There are different ways that the schools are leveraging technology to try and bring others in to support academically.
And you know, being an educator, in my opinion, is probably the most important job next to, of course, being a parent and raising decent human beings.
Yeah.
But you guys, a lot of times you're doing both.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that goes underappreciated at times. And so I just want to say thank you for everything that you all are doing to invest in our young people, because they are the next world. They are the population of tomorrow. And whether you like it or not, they gonna look, when we old and we on our way out, they're gonna be the ones having to take care of things and making sure that we got what we need. So it's best that we give them something good to remember about us now, you feel me? So that when they get to the point where they are, you know, in charge of things and running things, they'll have a reason to want to invest in us. But John, I just want you to further talk about how people can get involved, what they can do to help contribute to Westside Future Fund's purpose.
Well, one, I also wanted to mention a great way to get involved is to volunteer. And back to AT&T have been one of our best corporate volunteer partners. And so one way to get involved is if you're a corporation like AT&T, say, hey, we have, you know, when they've done volunteer efforts, right? Venessa involving, I think, north of 100 of your folks. I'm thinking of some of the events you've done. We can do customized events. So if there are any business leaders that are watching that want to emulate AT&T, we can work on a volunteer experience, whether it's at a school or a park or cleanup, all those. And others we do every, you know, once a month, every Saturday, we have a community day, so people can just, you know, sign up on our website, you know, to get involved. And we had a great MLK Day. We had, you know, a variety of sites that we were doing volunteer, and I should give a shout out to Raquel Hudson on our team who leads all that. It's a lot of
great job, Raquel.
Yeah, and so that's a great way, you know, to get involved. Another great way for everyone that's watching is to be learning more about what's happening, to just raise awareness about how people can plug in with their own advocacy, their own knowledge, their own ways to help, you know, help the West Side move forward. So that's another great way. And there, in other ways too, and Venessa mentioned our holistic effort. One of the things we do is we have specific things that we're raising money to do, which is really focused on the education and the housing, but also, and I remember some of this conversation with Venessa, and it's a holistic effort. So one of the things we also do is extend is connect organizations like AT&T into others that are part of the holistic effort, such as, you know, like the On the Rise Financial Center, Westside Works, or other parts of the ecosystem that are really, you know, delivering, you know, the economic mobility we want to see for folks in the neighborhoods.
All right, and we appreciate, again, the work that Westside Future Fund continues to do. And also, one of the things that I love learning about Westside Future Fund is how you play, you know, middleman. And what you just said, as far as introducing people who need resources to those resources. And, you know, a great example is here right now on the stage where we've got, you know, a great representative of a resource, AT&T Georgia, and a recipient of their resource, you know, Hollis Innovation and the Booker T. Washington Cluster. So I want to say thank you to you, John, and everybody at Westside Future Fund working on staff that are making sure that the resources get to where they need to be. And Ms. Harrison, I want you to speak more to the AT&T Access program. I know we had a slide or two that we wanted to show about that. But speaking to how people can get involved with AT&T, is there anything that people can do to help with these programs? And then just highlight the AT&T Access program itself.
Well, the AT&T Access program is for people that, low-income people or people that get some type of government subsidy, and they offer a lower rate. And that is all because we realize that a lot more needs to be done in closing the digital divide. If one thing that the pandemic did was it spotlighted the needs that we have in connectivity. We know that when the pandemic hit, kids went home, as Dr. Ford said. Many of them didn't have access. And so one instance, what we did was work with Governor Kemp in putting antennas on school buses and putting these school buses out in these areas that did not have access so that they could get Wi-Fi and be able to get internet access to do their homework and to do, their classwork. And so those are the type of innovative things that we have to continue to do. Long gone are the days where we can do it alone. Providers can't do it alone anymore. It takes collaboration and partnerships, such as the ones you see here today, and also along with our local and state policymakers and federal policymakers as far as that's concerned, ensuring that we have policies that will encourage investment in our communities, that will allow us to be able to provide connectivity in areas that we don't traditionally serve. And so when you see things like the affordable internet, that is just another way of bridging that digital divide.
And the company AT&T, you guys set out on a 3-year, $2 billion investment. Mm-hmm. That's a lot.
Yep.
3 year, and such a short span of time, which is beautiful. We can't speak enough to the fact that corporate involvement and corporate investment when it comes to necessities like these is huge. Mm-hmm. So putting that amount of money behind this investment, what drove AT&T to be able to do that? Well, not to be able to do that. Obviously, you can do that. But what drove you to want to do that, and specifically, why choose again the West Side to be a part of that investment?
Well, for one, what drove us to do it was consumer demand. We see the demand that our consumers need, and we listen and we hear them. But the other thing is that to be able to bridge that digital divide, you've got to have the infrastructure to do that. And just here in Georgia, we've invested $5.7 billion in our wireless and wireline infrastructure, with 3.7 of that being right in the Atlanta area. And so we know that our consumers are demanding faster access anywhere with anybody. And so to be able to do that, we've got to have infrastructure that can do it. And to be able to have this infrastructure, we have to have public policies that encourages investment on behalf of the providers. And so it goes back to collaboration. We have to collaborate with our government entities, with our local nonprofits, with our schools. It truly takes a village to be able to make it happen.
And Dr. Ford, we know that, as educators, you tend to have very close relationships with your students and their families, and you're really invested in every sense, emotionally, physically, like mentally. You're just fully invested in the well-being of these young people. So if you could just speak to some of the highlights that you've seen, the actual impacts in students' lives that you've seen, students that like Trinity and students like that. What are some of the impacts that you've seen from these investments, and how they translate to real people who you can actually put a name to a face?
So I can put names to faces, greater engagement, feeling like that you're in tune and in step goes a long way, that you're not coming to school feeling lost or trying to catch up. So being able to be engaged and be able to follow along with things that have been discussed in class. I would also say that one of the things that I can think of with some of our kindergarten and first grade students, that I'm thinking of Ms. Ford's son, just having a spark. They're back in school, but they're also having an opportunity to do things that this generation is it's a normacy, being in a technological world. So I think that those types of investments in having technology in the building, having access to it outside of the building, get students to feel like they're engaged and they can follow along, and they are, they're ready to be in school. I think the COVID pandemic has kind of stopped them a little bit, and being at home is great, but being in school is even better. And so now that they're in school and we're looking at ways of how do we keep them interested is huge. I do remember a student having, we had a conversation one morning, and they had an opportunity to do a little research, and they're a jokester. So they've been able to, research little jokes, and our little thing is to come in and they tell me a joke. But, how do you do that? You have to go and search for it. So now having the opportunity to be like, oh, I got another one for you this morning. So it's just things like that that kind of are that building of connectivity for our kids. And I think engagement is huge. That's the word that we need to always think about in school, is that we have to engage them. And now that technology is at home and in school and is such a big part of their life, if you don't have that engagement, I've lost you. So I have to continue to engage.
Speaking of engagement, John, one of the things that you like to highlight about Westside Future Fund is that it's a place-based initiative. Mm-hmm. And speaking of place-based initiative, you know, we're in the community. The new offices for Westside Future Fund now at 970 Jefferson Street. If you could just talk a bit about the significance of being in that location and having close proximity to everybody within the community who you like to serve.
Yeah, we as a place-based initiative, and we've taken a lot of learnings for our work, you know, out of purpose-built communities, you know, which kind of started with a place-based effort at Eastlake, and Venessa was mentioning earlier she'd recently met with former Mayor Shirley Franklin, who's been a real leader on the place-based initiatives. But yeah, so holistically, you know, serving the community and to be in the community, because you know, now that we have our offices, and one thing we want to do, and COVID's kind of slowed us down a bit in terms of really being able to, you know, bring the facility to life. We're very grateful that we're in partnership with the Foodwell Alliance. You know, Bill Bowling as the chair of that organization. He has been in that building a long time, wearing a previous hat with the Atlantic Community Food Bank, but reactivating the building to serve the West Side. So they, you know, in partnership with them, you know, activating, because there's a lot of support on the West Side for urban farming and community gardens, which they support, which is terrific, and other not-for-profits that are now serving the West Side in 970 Jefferson Street. One of the things we want to do more activation of is, especially as the West Side Connector Trail becomes more active, is entrepreneurs that may be able to be selling to people, you know, biking or walking along the trail, that 970 is an access point for that. So being able to be in the community, and especially when we, you know, are hosting people to come learn more about it, you know, that's a great, you know, they're actually coming to the community as opposed to, you know, we're somewhere else and, you know, showing up on a TV or something. And the other thing that's been really important for me, I have to say this, is, you know, a little over 2 years ago, I moved into Vine City. I have been living on the east side of Atlanta, where I spent most of my life growing up. But that's been another big part for me in terms of really being a good advocate on behalf of the West Side. Because it's one thing to read about things and be there in a day, but it's another thing to be, you know, be in it day after day and really appreciate some of the, both, you know, the inspiration of the West Side, because you know, drive around, see these streets names and all the inspiration from that, and but also, you know, appreciating the challenges. So, you know, living and working on the West Side really, you know, bring that to life for us.
Awesome. Looks like we got a question from social, and Dr. Ford, I can see this is for you.
Okay.
What strategies or resources do you recommend for parents to support their children with reading and math?
Oh, goodness. There are plenty of them. One of the ones that I do like, and you can have access to this at home, through their My Backpack on their computer. There are a plethora of resources up there. There's Nearpod that has videos, BrainPop that has videos that are very engaging. They also have access to their intervention sources that we use at the school, so they can get onto their Math 180 or their Read 180 or their System 44 that are resources there. And so there are some few other things that we're trying to push within the school. Videos that are great learning videos. So I know I just sat in on something called Kid Nation that I'm very interested in, but they have very hip-hop focused, culturally relevant videos and things like that for kids. So we're actually looking at doing that. But I would definitely go to their My Backpack and ensure that you look at the suite of things that we've put in there and go through there. But I would really push their intervention suites that the kids have, because it's going to help them with some of those gaps that we're trying to fill. So definitely go into My Backpack. The kids know how to get in there.
I appreciate how old you just made me feel, because I don't know what
You didn't know anything I said.
is. My backpack was something that I put on my back and walked to school, and it would weigh me down, and sometimes the straps would break because I had 6 books in my bag. But it, you know, it's cool. It's a new age.
That's how they navigate into all of their apps and things. We put all of their safe apps, things that are safe for them to see, because we know the world can be a little different out there. So they're vetted and they're put into that My Backpack, the digital backpack, for them to go in.
And is that just for APS students?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's cool, man. That's top notch. That's 2022, y'all. That's 2022 education. Well, thank you so much to all of our panelists. We definitely appreciate you all taking the time to be with us this morning. Ms. Venessa Harrison, AT&T Georgia's president, Dr. I don't want to get that wrong. Dr. Diamond Ford, principal of Hollis Innovation Academy in the Booker T. Washington Cluster, and our very own top dog, Mr. John Ahmann, president and CEO of Westside Future Fund. We appreciate you all joining us, and we're gonna have you all now take your leave as you will. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. Watch your steps on the way down. And I'm going to have my lovely co-host, Miss Ebony Ford, come join me again as we close out today's show.
Thank you.
Ebony, what you think?
That was awesome. I mean, just awesome. I was thoroughly entertained. I couldn't even sit down. I was literally standing up.
Just bouncing around the back of the room, I feel you.
Yes. I remember, I know I've told my West Side story is what I like to call it, a couple of times, but you know, we always have new viewers, and thank you so much for being with us today. But about 5 years ago, when if I can get a little bit personal, when I had to leave my ex-husband, and I was a victim of pretty extreme financial abuse. But the one thing that I did have to come back to was my little house in English Avenue. I did at least have that. So that was just spectacular, first of all. But I didn't have anything else. I had no car, no job, no money, no internet. I'm getting there. I know you're like, where's she going with this? No internet. So the first thing I did was on my phone. I did have a cell phone, thank God for that, and I just kind of looked up initiatives for internet. I'm like, they can't expect me to pay $100 a month for internet when I don't have a job, but I'm newly divorced, and I'm a single mother, and I have a child. And sure enough, I found the Access program, $10 a month. Okay, so and it was the segue to me then being able to apply for benefits. You know, I look for child care programs for my son to attend, look for jobs, attend training, sign up for seminars, whatever it was, but it literally was my foundation to be able to get myself back on my feet, the Access program through AT&T, to be where I am today, and I have a long way to go, but I'm able to provide for my son, and it all started, I promise you, with the AT&T Access program. So I appreciate everyone obliging me and letting me tell that story, but so this is really, really personal for me here today. So thank you everyone for being here.
Well, look, you know we love personal.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna cry like in a minute, but yeah, so that's my West Side story, and the Access program was my catalyst, and so thank you, personally, thank you.
Well, that's a beautiful full circle moment for you.
Yes, it is.
Look, I told you we were gonna pop off the year right, y'all. Look, y'all gonna have to start listening to me.
I know.
You gonna have to start believing me when I tell you these things that we was gonna pop the year off right.
Absolutely, yes. So I didn't want to make everybody sad. So since I took you there, let me take you somewhere else. We are ready to give away our gift cards today. So
amen.
Thank y'all for being here. And usually I kind of rush past this part, but since it's the beginning of the year, I'm going to actually read what it says as far as what the Home Depot Foundation and Goodwill of North Georgia, what they actually do in our community. Okay, so y'all oblige me again. Give me the latitude one more time if you don't mind. It is time for the Home Depot gift card giveaway. We appreciate our friends so much at the Home Depot Foundation for their continued commitment to the historic West Side. The Home Depot Foundation has been a very strong supporter of West Side Future Fund, and it has invested millions of dollars in the equitable revitalization of the West Side. And without further ado, the winner of the Home Depot Foundation gift card drawing is Miss Bernadine Cobb. So,
all right, congratulations.
In addition to whatever they do, the millions of dollars that they give to the West Side, they're also giving Ms. Bernadine Cobb a gift card today as well. And Goodwill of North Georgia. Goodwill is building a new store and career center on Metropolitan Parkway, which is set to open this fall. As they build a new site in the city of Atlanta, Goodwill's hope is to become part of the fabric of the community and become a catalyst for transformation in the city. Goodwill's focus is not just on helping our community find work, but helping them to move from low-wage jobs to successful careers. And through Goodwill Career Centers, our community will have free access to job search resources such as computers, resume writing tools, job listings, employment seminars, software training, and more. And without further ado, they're also giving a gift card away today. And Miss Miles, sorry to kind of give it away. I think it's Dejanay, Miss Dejanay Miles. Ms. Miles, please forgive me if I messed your name up, but yes, you are the winner of the Goodwill of North Georgia gift card today. Congratulations.
All right, congrats to both of our winners. We appreciate, again, Home Depot Foundation and Goodwill of North Georgia. Again, you know, they do tremendous work.
Yes.
That being said, we will be back February 4th for our second Transform Westside Summit of the year. We will likely still be virtual, but y'all stay tuned as we continue to update with the new updates from COVID and where the spikes are going. So hopefully everybody out there is staying healthy, staying safe. And until next time, folks, enjoy a new year. We appreciate you. Happy 2022. See y'all next time.